Hi guys, thank you for joining. Welcome to our KEX Plus webinar series. For the new guys who are just joining for the first time, welcome. For our avid fans, wow, welcome back. But yeah, this is just one of our webinar series. We upload them on YouTube afterward because this is all recorded, just so you guys know. So yeah, let's begin. We'll talk about generative AI today, and I'm CJ. You guys might have seen me sending you emails, right? But not all of those are me. Again, as I told Andrew earlier, if it was bad content, it wasn't me. But yeah, I sent you guys a lot of emails.
We don't have bad content.
That's
We
true.
don't have bad.
But yeah, nice to meet you guys. I've been around for quite a while in the company, 11 years to be exact. And I actually have Rames here as well, the head of our off page. He's also been around for quite a while,
Mhm.
leading the charge in terms of our content generation for off page. And the reason why he's here is because his team is applying a lot of this AI technology with the processes and well, yeah, if you want to talk about it real quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically, my team has been using AI for quite a while now. We pioneered the use of AI in the organization, and we've done a lot of experimentation, different tools, different workflows, different processes. And so I thought that I could give you guys some useful tips or answer some questions about how to best use AI to your advantage, especially when it comes to content marketing.
Right. And then I know this Rames, you mentioned you're tired beyond measure. I hope you're
Yeah.
not too tired.
Coffee. Just fueled by
busy.
coffee.
But yeah, I think Susanna, you wanted to say that. Like, are you tired too? I think we're all tired, but that's it's okay. But yeah, just wanted to let you guys know. Just one rule, at least not a rule, but really just again reminding you guys. Feel free to interrupt us anytime because the quality of this conversation will be determined by the insights you share with us. So if you feel like you have a comment or you wanna say something, you feel like we need to repeat something, just let us know.
Yeah.
Right.
Put it in the chat.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So let us begin. And I will be showing you. Well, I'm showing you right now a couple of images that will be familiar to you. And as you're seeing on your screen, this is not Sixth Sense. This is the movie AI. If you guys have seen it or have not seen it, and I'm sure you're pretty familiar with Mr. Terminator right here. If you play video games, you'll be familiar with this, and if you read books, I'll also be familiar with this. And again, these images that I've flashed on the screen, we hear the word AI in a lot of these literature, and one thing in common with a lot of these literature is that it's saying that AI will take over the world, right? And
It's evil.
right, it's evil, and again, it will take over the world. And some of us believe that this day will come at some point. Some of us, of course, don't. But in reality, right, it already has, right? Because we already have ChatGPT, we have Bard, and we have Bing, doing their own thing, technically leading the charge for generative AI. Now, getting aside, these are really sophisticated AI systems that exist today. But you would need to first understand, of course, the different types of AI,
Right.
so that we can start talking about generative AI. Okay, so let's dive into different types of AI here. So the first one, narrow intelligence, which what we like to call the assistant. This is the current state of AI, right? So, and this is also the most primitive of it, right? So again, if people think that AI will take over the world, not yet, right?
No.
Because we're currently just in the narrow artificial intelligence version of it.
It's not smart enough.
Right.
Not yet.
It's smart enough to assist us, right? But that's about it, right? So generative AI, which is what we're going to talk about today, is part of narrow AI, right? And one thing that the narrow AI or generative AI is actually good at is really just pattern recognition, right? It does statistical predictions, right? The one thing that's notable with generative AI is it cannot work without human intervention. Okay? So you have to tell it, you have to give it commands in order for it to create an output, right? Which again, what we experience with ChatGPT, Bard, and all those other AI platforms. The other type of AI is general artificial intelligence, or AKA the operating system. So this is the type of AI that's usually found in the fiction that I was mentioning earlier, right? Like if you've seen Resident Evil, like the Hive OS on there, or if you're a fan of Star Wars, the droids on there, right? So the main difference between this type of AI versus narrow AI is this AI is able to transfer the knowledge it's learned onto a different task, right? Not like narrow AI, which in whatever you've taught it in a specific task to be done, that's it. You cannot transfer it over to another task, right? And again, this is general artificial intelligence. And lastly, of course, super intelligence AI, aka Skynet, if you again are a fan of Terminator. So this is the scary AI that we're talking about, right? Because this will only happen if the AI's capability surpasses the collective intelligence of the entire human race, right? So we don't know if and when this will happen, or if it's actually possible, but that's why a lot of regulations are created in AI research to always put humans first, right? But again, this is far off from what we have right now, and again, it's important that we're talking about this so that any misconceptions that you guys might have will be cleared out, right? So we're only at the narrow type of AI at the moment, right? Again, the most primitive type of AI, right? So now that that's clear, so now that you have the basic knowledge of 10 of the different types of AI, so it's time to dive in into generative AI. Again, technically discussing what it can and can't do, how it can help us get our tasks streamlined or our teams augmented and enabled. So generative AI, again, as much as you guys are already using, most probably, can empower your creative department. It can help you manage your everyday tasks, and again, streamline maybe content marketing that you're doing for your marketing department, right? So let's discuss a bit more about generative AI. So what is it and how does it work, right? So generative AI, it's a machine learning model that learns from the examples of patterns, like what I've been talking about earlier. It doesn't have abstract reasoning or logical reasoning at all. It really just learns from patterns you feed it. Or technically, the companies who run the AI platforms, they really just train it, right? They train it with a lot of patterns and data. And then it produces the output from text prompts, right? Or written requests when you type it on, for example, ChatGPT. So you technically just describe what you want, and the AI tries to create the concept to the best of depends on which patterns it has actually seen before, right? So you sort of try to interpret what your directions are, and then okay, this is what the human thinks. This is what I think the human wants to see out producing, right? So it does this through NLP or natural language processing. So what that does is it connects the words you feed it to try and predict what comes next. Again, it just recognizes patterns. So based on what patterns it's learned or has been trained into, it recognizes the words you feed it and tries to predict, oh, okay, this is what you're looking for. And it does that through NLP. And the AI can only do this if it's been trained with massive amounts of human collected data, right? Of course, it's the humans that feed it the data. And these data is called large language models, or LLMs. That normally comes from servers from the internet or wherever they put the information in. Now, there's also computer vision. Computer vision is how, of course, machines see images. Of course, it's different from how a human sees an image. Like, for example, growing up, you know what a TV looks like because, again, you encounter the TV. A machine is sort of like that too in the beginning, doesn't know what a TV is. You have to train you have to train it on what a TV looks like, right?
Yeah, but it's the same concept, right? Because it notices the patterns, but this time it, instead of like words, it's looking at pixels,
right?
Establishing patterns on what pixels go together, and then put all those pixels together, they look like a TV.
Right.
That's the concept of a TV to an AI.
And again, it doesn't know it's a TV because you tell it's a TV. It's really because it recognizes the patterns of the pixels. Oh, okay, so
That's
this is a TV, right? Now there's also multimodal learning where NLP, or the natural language processing, and computer vision is combined. And this is how a lot of generative AI nowadays, before it's just text, right? Write me a blog or whatever. Now there's also create or produce an image that looks like this. and there are some AI platforms who can actually already develop snippets of videos, music. If
Definitely.
you guys have seen the trending clip of the South Park voice singing what's that song from Evanescence? I forgot, but but yeah,
I've seen it.
it's an AI generated voice that's singing a song, which is it's generated by AI.
Right.
So again, generative AI is really just pattern recognition. It doesn't have logical or abstract reasoning at all. It tries to guess what comes next from again what it has been told. So the power is not logical reasoning; it's really just again following the patterns.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. So its brain doesn't get bigger, right? It's just really learning more patterns, right? So now let's talk about a bit of we've talked about generative AI. So let's see how that's connected to content marketing, or how you can use generative AI in content marketing. Now, we don't need to remind you that AI cannot read our minds, right? I mean, it's gonna be awesome if it can, but it's also scary, right? Like, but it's different from like when you're, I don't know if you guys have experienced it. You're talking to somebody about donuts, and then you go on Facebook, right? You go on Facebook, you see ads about donuts, which is weird, but it's not like that. But yeah, again, AI cannot read their minds, so you have to be able to talk to it using clear and concise prompts, right?
Yeah.
And those prompts, or at least this process, is called prompt engineering, which is a very it's actually an emerging digital marketing skill, right?
It's a thing now.
Right.
It's a position. It's a role.
Right. I've seen this like prompt engineer, or like machine
Prompt ninja.
Right, prompt ninja, machine learning expert, right? And that's something we'll go through today as well. I mean, you won't come out of this training being like a super pro about it, but at least you have the fundamentals to start training yourself, or like practice experimenting, which is actually one of the best things or best ways to learn prompt engineering. So let us give you guys a bit of the basics on here. So what is prompt engineering? So think about it like it's coding, right? Like when a programmer codes, but you're not using the programming language. You're just using simple words. You're just really conversationally telling the machine, "Hi, hey, can you create this piece of content?" So it's a set of instructions that lets the AI know what type of content you want to be generated, right? So the instructions need to be as detailed as possible, so that of course AI can understand based on the patterns it's seen and it's learned. And we have your checklist on screen that you can start to use when you're creating prompts. So we've listed down a couple of things here. So number one, of course, you need to know what the objective is of the content, and you can again mention that in the prompt. You have to say what content type it is, from which perspective is it going to come from, who's the receiving audience, of course, and the tone, right? How you want the content to be, or what the tone of the content is, or how it's going to be generated. And we have a quick example here based on the research that we've done as well. And of course, we've tried using it. So if you're seeing it on screen, here's a sample prompt here. Describe a rivalry between AI-generated content and human-generated content in a light-hearted, funny post for Instagram and target marketers. And this is what the result looks like, right? So this is through ChatGPT. So it created content for us. You see there's a lot of emojis on it. Because why? Because I said light-hearted, funny post. So
For Instagram.
Which
Which is, emojis.
Emoji heavy. And as you'll notice, it didn't just create just one post for me, right? You see that there are rounds on there. From round 1, it's created up until round 5. And if you take a look at the last paragraph there at the bottom, it's actually pretty cool that it didn't really, describe a winner from either side. It said that, both us and the AI wins.
Oh, that's sweet.
So,
So many puns, though. So many puns.
Yeah, so many puns in one. Because again, I said that I want a funny post, right? So pretty clear cut, right? Now, there's a technique that you guys can also start to use, right? When prompt engineering. Again, I'm not sure if you guys have encountered this or are using it. It's called the curly bracket, right? So if you're seeing on screen, I created a prompt here, and I'm using the curly bracket to sort of define certain parts of a prompt that I can interchange with whatever subject or whatever topic I want, so that you'll have a template, right?
Yeah.
So that's really the main goal for it, so that whatever type of content you're looking to generate or have generated, you can have a template to, again,
Yeah.
moving forward, start to use. So
Yeah. And this is how you scale, right? Because when you have templates, especially if you find that your work, there is a pattern to the kind of work that you generate, whether it's a blog post or a social media post, there are certain patterns in how you do certain kinds of tasks for certain types of content. So having all this prepared beforehand, and then like just plug and play, just plug in, okay, for this one, the topic is going to be about this, the audience is going to be that, the tone is going to be this for this brand, right? Everything in curly brackets allows you to really just come up with a lot of these things on the fly.
Right. And just to add to what Reem said, why it's very important, because sometimes creating the prompt can be tricky, right? Sometimes you can be stuck creating the content. I mean the prompt, right? So having a template really helps. But again, this is just a sample, like a short one. But I mean, here's the result, right? So it's a haiku about work in English. So that can be interchanged to whatever type of topic or language you want it to be generated in, and ChatGPT or the AI platform can respond. Another sample that we have on here, again, for the everyday tasks that you guys are doing. So we have email responses. The prompt here is a bit longer than the previous one, but as you guys can see, I put curly brackets there. The first one there is help me respond to this email. So I'm talking about so the email can be interchanged to whatever email you received, so that this prompt can respond to it, right? And you'll see the email sample at the bottom of the prompt. Email, hello CJ, I need your team to expedite your request. So again, I don't know. I didn't imagine us having technology like this, like what we have right now. But again, it's here. Right?
Just years ago, you wouldn't have been able to imagine this kind of thing.
Right. But it's here, and it's pretty much easy to use. So I use this prompt, like exactly this prompt, and this is what it generated for me. So it's an email responding to it's an email response to the email I included in the prompt earlier.
So polite.
Right. So polite, because I said here, you are a professional executive account manager. Help me respond to this email. Write in a conversational but professional manner. So it took my prompt and here's a professional and informational.
Yeah. And if you wanted to polish that up a bit, if you say, oh, it's a little stiff, it's a little, then what you could do then is, again, put the whole thing back in ChatGPT and then just say, rewrite this to be even more conversation.
Right. And those are, we call those add-ons, right? Like you already have a prompt, you want to tweak it, so you put a little bit of add-on on there, right? You can add it to your template down the line,
and that's polishing.
Yep.
Which is something we'll talk about a lot later.
Yes.
Because that's what you need to have good output from AI.
I think that's like rule number 1 in AI, and like generative content generation is like you got
for now.
Yeah. Right. Right. Next is, it can actually also help you create a project plan. The prompt here also is a bit long, but I just want you guys to focus on something on here. This is on, I think on the second or third paragraph there, I said that start by creating a list of project objectives that are specific and measurable. List and success indicators, milestones, and deliverables. Now ask me if I want to see the timeline. So let's specifically put on there, because if you want the AI to start generating tables for you and whatnot, more palatable way to see the data. But again, I'll show you guys how this looks like. So ChatGPT generated the project plan for me, right? So objectives, success indicators, because there's something that I look for in my prompt. Milestones, deliverables, it broke it down. And then here you'll see on the image on the far right, it stopped and asked me, would you like to see the timeline for the project? And then I responded yes, and then great, here's the timeline for the brand creation project. And then there we go. It's just created like a tabular view of the stages of the project, the timelines, responsibilities, so on and so forth. So again, very, very intuitive for at least for the AI to understand if you have a template like this, right? And also, creating presentation. Mind you, this presentation was not done through AI. We did manual research. But again, if I had a hard time thinking of a topic or at least putting something together as a draft, AI can also help me. I also have attached here a sample prompt you guys can use, still with the curly brackets. Um, if you notice, there's a section here at the bottom that says time, and then I just put in 15 minutes. So I want it to be a short presentation, and ChatGPT just gave me about, so the slides are on here. Even the speaker notes are created for me. That's great. And it gave me about 13 slides. So yeah, it's saying that okay, about a minute or so, or less than a minute or so for a slide for presenting. So
Right.
15 minutes, about 13 slides.
And
So
we didn't use this, but we very well could.
right. So again, because I'd like to, because both me and Rames also used to write more in our roles. Um, I think we can all agree, and I guess Suzanne too, you will. Like sometimes the trickier part of the content generation is the coming up with the idea, right? That's
Mhm.
really what
The
Okay.
blank page.
Right.
That's the
We haven't
worst.
started anything yet. This is really what takes more time. But again, AI, one of the best things that AI can help us with is the actual ideation, the back and forth, right? Yep. Thanks for agreeing, Suzanne. So, and this really helps us out. Like, okay, there's a draft. We just have to continue from there. Now that we've gone through like a bit more of the more mundane everyday tasks and how AI can help with that, we can dive into the more strategic parts of our work that actually AI can help us in. And Rames, you can
Right.
take over.
Okay. So AI, like I said, like my team has been doing a lot of work with AI, but not just with the content itself, but also with all of the steps when it comes to content marketing, and with keyword research, with topic ideation, and it's really all about, if you want to scale up your operation, it's all about coming up with these templates and these prompts so that you can use them again and again for different purposes, right? So here we have, if you're prompting for a topic, because again, starting with just a topic is one of the hardest parts of writing, like just deciding what to write about and sitting there just trying to think of something. AI can definitely help you out, right? So no more of that. Agree, Suzanne. It's all about the templates, because it just lets you start, it lets you scale, it lets you do it in a reliable manner, right? So it's a process. So here we have all of the stuff that we talked about earlier in this prompt. So you have your objective, right? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the perspective that you are writing from, or that you are ideating from? In this case, you are a writer, you want to do this, and then you ask the question, you want to write about topic, plug it in, depending on what you have. And then what would your topic and subtopics be? So then you're starting to go into the outlining process of using AI in their outlining process. And here, if it's SEO keywords, something like this, a prompt like this might generate something like this, right? Again, if just years ago, if I were doing this manually, I would probably spend about 10 minutes just kind of looking up at the ceiling and trying to come up with something.
Right.
We've all done it, especially if you've worked in content. But now what this does is, am I going to use this? Maybe not as it is, right? But generally, this is something that I can start with. Like that's good. That's not. Throw that out. See what else is out there. Oh, you know what? I can take that from this competitor, put this in, right? And all of a sudden, I have an entire outline that I can use to start writing.
And I wanted to add, Rames, like if we go back to the prompt, and you mentioned this already, but I wanted to emphasize on it. The prompt specifically tells the AI that, hey AI, you are an experienced writer, right? So you're giving the AI the persona that you want, the perspective to come from, right? Which is very, very important, because if you put on here a different type of professional, I don't know,
Right.
You're a plumber, we need
Right.
to publish so the results, of course, will come up differently,
Right.
So that's
And a quick tip, actually, since you mentioned persona, one of the things that you can have the AI do is to act as your target persona,
right.
right? Who are you writing for? So one of the tricks that we've been doing with the prompt is you have the AI take the perspective of your audience. Like, for example, you are, I don't know, someone who has been in a car accident, right? What would be some of the things that you would like to know about, or something like that, right? And then you'd have topics about what to do, who is liable, can I sue, stuff like that, right? So this is another way of using AI, because AI can take a role, because it has seen the pattern before on the what it's been trained on. It can do that.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Next. With keyword research, so keyword research, topic ideation, generally these two things come together, are done together. So one of the challenges of doing keyword research, again, is, if you're doing the obvious keywords, then sure, it's going to be easy to do. Like, talk about the service, talk about that. But sometimes even just coming up with a starting search term, like maybe a new angle, a new keyword that you could use for the same campaign, especially if you've written a ton of content about it already, or if you've optimized for a lot of keywords for it already. This is a great way to come up with new keywords, right? And again, the prompt that you see over here, giving a role, right? This is something that it sounds weird sometimes, like you are whoever.
You are.
But you need to do SEO on a blank website. Give me some good target keywords to drive like whatever goal. Foot traffic, brand awareness, signups, right? And then from there, you can get a list of keywords, right? Like this. Are these good keywords? You don't know, right? But it's the beginning of the process, because what you can then do is do keyword research using keyword research tools. My team uses Ahrefs. So we would then probably look at this and then look at all the usual stuff for keyword research. So the difficulty, the potential traffic, the monthly volumes, who the competitors are. And again, once you're in that tool, you can start seeing related keywords. You can start seeing question versions of that keyword, which again helps you to jumpstart the keyword research process.
Right.
So this is again something that we've been using with, I would say, pretty successfully. And I'll show you some of the results of that later on in the presentation.
Right. And I wanted to add to, so the goal says put traffic on the prompt. Or it's providing
local
keywords,
right,
with possible geo targets, because again, I mentioned
foot traffic, so, right. And generally, again, also depending on the type of business, right? So plumbing, you would have a specific service area. You want to drive foot traffic. Definitely, local keywords is what you would what you would try to optimize for. So that's the kind of keywords that it gave us. So great stuff.
Yep.
Okay. So, I think this is going to be what a lot of you are interested in, because again, I'm not saying that this is the correct way to do it, but this is how we've been doing it, and it's gotten us some pretty good results. Okay. So here we have some of the tools that we've been using. So obviously ChatGPT, but in addition to ChatGPT, other AI tools include Jasper. For some of the more some of the content that we're doing, as well as Surfer SEO in terms of optimization. I'm not going to demo either of those tools. Maybe that's a separate webinar or a separate presentation. But what they do briefly, so Jasper is all about templates. Okay, so it's content generation, but it can do templates like outlines. It can do templates based on content format, like this is a social media post, this is a Google business post, this is a blog post, this is a CTA or for a landing page, right? So Jasper can do that. So we've found that our process works well with Jasper. You may use different kinds of AI content, but this is one that we use that is able to drive results for us. Surfer SEO is an optimization tool. So what it does is it looks at your content and Using natural language processing, it will look at your competitors for the keyword that you're trying to optimize for and pick out the relevant terms that the ranking competitors are using. Because it uses the reasoning that if your competitors are using these terms in their content, you should be too, right? At the minimum. And then based on the number of terms that you've used, based on how you've used them, whether it's in a subhead or in your title, it can then give you a score, right? And then it also gives a score to your competitors. Because again, it takes, and it does all of this really quickly. Instead of, and I'm sure some of you have done this before, if you've done content analysis for competitors, you would go to each competitor, you'd list down all their subheads, you'd list down some of the keywords they're ranking for, move to the next competitor, copy paste, right? Jasper, a fellow Jasper user, awesome.
Yep.
So instead of doing that manually, Surfer SEO will do it like really, really quickly. Right. And it's fun too, because while you're typing and then you're using more of this, it shows the list of words, right? And every time you use the words, there's a dial that goes up, right? So it's a little bit of a gamified thing where you could optimize your content and hit a certain score that you're trying to aim for. And that optimization will definitely help with the performance of your content. But anyway, so those are the two other tools aside from ChatGPT that we are using. So we use it again in the keyword research. So how do we use AI? We use AI to help define an audience and the blog focus. That's ChatGPT, right? Like who are the people who are using this product? Right? Those are some of the prompts that we would ask, some of the questions that we ask ChatGPT. And then based on that audience, we can start asking the questions that I gave earlier. Like you are, you are a housewife who struggles with doing laundry, whatever, if that's the product that you're doing. That's the audience, right? So based on that, you can build on a persona. Using the persona, you can start looking at what are some of the questions that someone like that might have. What are some of the pain points that they have, and might be a search term that they're using when they're doing research online, right? So the one tip that I can give is when you give a prompt, don't just look for keywords. Look for the audience's needs, because those needs are what drives the search terms. And especially with the way that ChatGPT and other AI is going to affect search, which again, we'll talk about later, this is going to be something that you will need to think about more and more. What is the underlying need of a keyword or a search term, and how do I answer that, right? And ChatGPT can help you jumpstart that process of you finding those terms, right? And then once you have all of these terms, once you have all of these keywords, you validate with an actual keyword research tool like Ahrefs. So you look at the usual stuff, difficulty, volume, people also ask, secondary keywords, related keywords. Once you have all of those keywords, you move on to topic ideation. We've shown you a template of how to use that earlier in the presentation. Prompt for topics using the keyword based on the audience that you've identified during the keyword research phase. You can use Google Trends, actually. It's one of the things that we've also been looking at, is if Google Trends will confirm that it's something that's on the rise, especially. This is a kind of keyword that you want to target. Or if it's a seasonal keyword, right? Like, like we're entering the fall and then going into the winter season. So you're going to start seeing more seasonal keywords, whether it's related to winter or Christmas or gifts or something like that. You can also validate those with Google Trends as well as Ahrefs. And of course, always check the search engine results page for those keywords, what topics people are coming up with, your competitors are coming up with using those keywords. Once you have all that, that's when you start creating a content brief for the writer, if someone else is writing it, or for yourself, if that's how you write. And this is where Surfer SEO comes in, because with Surfer SEO, you can actually it can give you a list of suggested subheads. It just click and then it adds the subhead to your content, and again the score changes based on that. Once you have those, it can generate an outline for you. It can suggest optimized subheads or questions, or people also ask. And then again, you look at how you can optimize versus your competitors using Surfer, right? So it gives you these search terms they're already using, which some of you might be familiar with. The term for that would be LSI, latency matching index. So the more of these that you are using naturally in the copy, then it means your copy is more comprehensive, is more useful, is more valuable. And then finally, after it, content brief, in the actual writing and editing, that's where we use Jasper, right? To generate maybe some intros, to suggest, like how you would state like a statistic or something. And we can use it to create outlines, to suggest intros, subheads. But in addition to what something like Jasper would produce, always curate, edit, and polish with a person. Okay? You never trust the first thing that comes out of AI, right? What comes out of AI is something raw. What comes out of AI is something that you can start with, but is generally not something that you would probably publish straight out.
And I love what you said about, of course, you're double checking, you're curating it. Don't just use AI to do that again, because that's one mistake that some people generate content do is, okay, AI output is here. Oh, let me use another AI tool to check this out. That's okay, but the last touch or the last set of eyes should still be a human, or like somebody who's really gonna take a look at it and digest the one.
Right, and a human, ideally, who understands, like the pain point, the goal of the content, what is going to engage, what is going to attract. So again, you always want to have human intervention there, which we have data on. We will have data on, which we'll present shortly. And always, guys, always fact check, especially if the content generated involves numbers, if it involves, certain statements about facts. All of those will always need to be fact checked, okay, by a person. So you just Google, and it's really simple. You just like, if AI tells you that there were X number of fatalities in traffic last year, it's really just copy paste the thing, look for it on Google. Is this true? And then see if that actually is the case, right? It doesn't even have to take long, but it's something you definitely have to do, right?
So a lot of what me and Rims talked about in terms of the prompt engineering, they're actually very basic, right? I mean, albeit they're long, but they're still just the basic and fundamental versions of the prompts. What we suggest is you take a look at them, you try them, and then from there, based on the results you're looking for, you can start to experiment. That's really how people, the machine learning people, again, that's what the job is now. The prompt engineers came up with the prompts is they just tried it, right? They experimented. So that's really the best way to do that, right? But again, right? I mean, while it's all powerful, AI, generative AI, as much as a lot of insight it can give us, it also has limitations, right? So you guys need to also understand, again, as much as you can like streamline a lot of the processes our team does, it still has some limitations. So number one here is limited understanding of context, right? So generative AI does not have its, again, own logical reasoning. I keep on saying it, right? Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Oh, okay, but thank you though. Thank you, Suzanne. No worries. We'll post the video after. But yeah, don't expect the AI to write something that is automatically prone to being viral, right? It doesn't know if it's gonna be viral or not. It just tries to, again, take a look at patterns. Sometimes it can also generate unoriginal content. This is not as common because AI is designed not to create duplicate content, but it can still happen.
Always check,
right?
Always check. Plagiarism tools are your best friend.
especially since AI, I guess, just scrapes soft information from a massive database and tries to piece it together. Sometimes it can come out unoriginal. It, this is very, very one of the bigger things. Biased information. Remember, AI cannot decide on its own. So the more biased content it encounters, the more chances for it to, again, use that information.
Yeah.
Talking about religion, racism, gender, right? Some content can come out biased because it's the information AI is going to come across. Inaccurate data, Rich already mentioned it earlier, especially happens when AI comes across information that is dated, it's not been updated before. Lastly is overemphasized output. You may just be looking for like to add examples to your prompts about a certain topic, and AI can misinterpret it as the main topic for your request, and it can go off tangent.
Yeah,
right? So
it does that. Like it just goes on and on. Like no. I only wanted you to add one thing,
Right.
And then it just goes on and on. It can do that. So you just really have to guide it with a better prompt.
Yep. All right. So that's about it for prompt engineering, guys. Let's just dive in really quickly on, well, sort of like the I don't know if I can say it's the juiciest part of this conversation, but
It's pretty juicy.
Yeah,
Pretty
because we'll tackle the question here, which a lot of us have asked. So, will the use of AI in content marketing affect website rankings or my rankings, your clients' rankings, right? Or really generally how your website is performing on a search engine? So, we've done our own share of experiments, of course, but first we wanted to show you guys experiments that are done by other organizations as well, more specifically by Reboot and Neil Patel. They were all published this year, I believe. So I'll start with what Reboot had to say with their experiment. So their hypothesis states, right, that in a controlled environment with no outside factors influencing the perceived quality of a given website, AI and human content would perform equally. So again, they're saying that AI generated content and human generated content should be able to perform equally in the eyes of a search engine.
Yeah.
Now, this assumption is also based on Google search engine guidelines, which is on screen at the moment, regarding the usage of AI in generating content. So we'll dive in on the spam policies. That again is the main pillar of what Google search guidelines, of course, takes a look at. And if you take a look at the list on screen right now, it really just says that the spam policy provides a pretty clear cut list that implies that AI generated content can be considered spammy if it doesn't go through human intervention, right?
Sure.
So let me show you guys what the methodology looks like.
I love this experiment because it's so scientific method.
Yep.
It's very solid science.
They also publish really the methodology of how they did it. So they selected an experiment keyword that has no search history. So we love this term. Lemperuni. It's like, okay. So they had to look for a word that has zero search history. They also, of course, selected experiment domains that have no search history to create the content on for the keyword Flimperoonie. They created two versions of the content, of course, to help the domains rank, AI-generated content and human-generated content. They set up the keyword position tracking, the sites go live. Of course, they monitor and maintain the websites. They gather the information and analyze it, and then they do a report. And this is what the results look like. And as you can see on screen, of course, the human-generated content is still
It's the green line.
right. This is still ranking higher, right? It's still within the top 5, right, of the search results, while the AI-generated content is like position 6 above. So it's still part of Google's first page results, right? So what insight does this give us, right? It means that AI-generated content will not outrank human-generated content websites anytime soon, right? But it also means, I wanted to give you guys more information about this. They also used tools to check if Google will recognize the AI-generated content as AI-generated, right? And Google actually was able to figure out that the content was AI-generated 80% of the time, right? So again, Google saw that, right? They knew that, okay, Google knew that, okay, this content is AI generated, but it's still ranking, as you guys see on screen, right? So there's more experiments we're going to see moving forward, but I just wanted to again remind you guys at least the result for the result of this experiment from Reboot. Both can still rank. It's just that human generated content seems to be ranking better, at least based on this experiment. So this is really just Google, well, with Google and Bing really putting a lot of resources to AI research. We're seeing it won't be long until the search engines themselves actually create content
Right.
in the search results. Right?
Yeah. One thing I want to add about this to clarify some of the methodology. When we say this is AI content, zero human intervention. Like what came out of the AI, that's what they used.
Right.
And then the human content again was okay. Then optimize for this keyword using the usual processes that he used. So again, did it rank? Yes. Did it rank as well as the human stuff? Especially and that's pretty good. It didn't, but considering this is content that hasn't been polished.
Yep.
Right. I thought that was pretty impressive in terms of like the data that it showed.
Yep.
Right. And we'll see more examples of this. This is a recurring theme in the data that we'll be showing you today.
Yep. Let's move on to our next experiment, and it's actually by Neil Patel. So they published content that aimed to find out how Google's spam update and Google's helpful content update that launched recently can affect AI-generated content.
Yeah.
So
that was late 2022,
Yeah,
I think,
about
last
late
quarter
last
of
year.
2022.
yeah, and people were like, "Oh, okay, new Google update." So yeah, they actually did some experiments on it specific. Well, not just AI, but they did as part of that review of the update. They did some experiments on AI. So they had about 100 AI-generated informational sites. 53 of them purely AI-created content including meta tags, and other 47, of course, humans modified the content, adding links and whatnot. So again, just to clarify, like what Rain said, the two sides of this experiment. The first one is no human intervention. The other one had human intervention. So this is what the results look like. Right? So you guys can see on screen, there's been drop in SEO traffic with content that are not, or technically the content that is not modified by humans. And of course, the traffic dropped also because the positions dropped in ranking.
So they both dropped.
Right. So it's again, based on the results we got from the Reboot experiment, it's not that AI is tagging AI generated content that cannot rank. No, it can. Right? It's just that, well, there's going to be versus human generated content or or AI generated content with human intervention. It will drop in rankings versus that, right? So they also, I think, figured out, at least in this experiment, that 14 sites out of the 53 here got hit with a spam update, and a couple of those sites lost about 51% of their traffic. So again, because the results you're seeing on screen is like the average for all those websites who lost traffic, but if you're just going to take a look at those websites who really lost traffic, there's about 51% of them, or at least of that traffic being lost. So there's a pretty big chunk. So what can we say, what can we say about these results again moving forward is that Google is not condemning AI content. As long as there's human intervention in it, or at least it's still following the spam update, or at least the Google's policies, it's okay, right? It's
Right.
still good.
Google will not penalize something just for being AI generated.
Right. Which is, again, a good thing, right? Because everybody's jumping on the AI capability for their teams. And it's good to know that Google still supports that, right?
Right.
Again, if you follow guidelines. So I think, Rames, you'd want to talk about our experiment.
Okay. So after reading all of these experiments, all of this data, I got a little jealous. So we decided to do our own experiment as well. And while we didn't do the same kind of, controlled environment like the Reboot study, we tried to do it with more scale by getting a bigger data set, right? So what we did was, so SEO Reseller has a large group of blogger partners that we use for outreach. And we managed to recruit some of our partners to take part in this study, where we would publish 150 blog articles across 11 sites. In each of those sites, we averaged about 7 pieces of content that were written completely by humans, strategized, keyword researched, and written completely by humans, and an equal number of articles that were written using the process that we laid out for you earlier in the presentation, right? So all of those tools, all of that workflow, assisted by AI, right? So some of the other variables that we tried to control as much as possible. So each of these sites had to have been driving 1,000 traffic monthly in stable in the past 6 months. All the keywords that were researched were done by the same content strategist, so there's no bias in that part. All keywords that were researched had KD or difficulty no higher than 20, and volumes no less than 1,000. So all things being equal, they should be driving the same amount of traffic, right? Each article was the same length, roughly, give or take 1,500 words. And there were no further optimizations done on the articles. It was only the publication, no link building done, no content promotion to drive extra traffic, just publish and then organically wait for it to start ranking and driving traffic. And after 6 months, this is the data that we gathered from the 150 articles. Okay, so red, going with the chart above, red is AI, blue is human written content, manually written content is what we're calling it here. Okay, so we can see here that there's a significant difference in terms of performance between the two. In terms of the amount of traffic, the percentage that we're driving traffic, and in terms of the percentage that was ranking for keywords after 6 months of publication, right? And if you were to break down the kind of traffic and the number of keywords that we were looking at, if you were to break down just the traffic in the pie chart or the donut chart, so what you would see here, the difference here, especially if you look at the blue part, which is what we're not driving any traffic, the manually written content, more of it was not driving traffic after 6 months, compared to what's the percentage there? Sorry, I'm a little bit 45% for the AI created content. And some of them were starting to drive traffic already. In fact, what you can see here is that if you look at the orange part, that is about 9.3% of them were driving 500 visits or 500 monthly traffic after 6 months, which is great, compared to, with the manually written content, only about 2.7%, in fact, were driving the traffic. So I found this really interesting because it seemed to go against the data of the other studies that we've seen, right? And so we dove a little bit more into it. And what we can really get from this, well, first of all, the first point that we need to, so again, consistent with the other studies, number one, AI assisted content can rank, okay? It's not going to get you penalized. But the next question would then be for you guys would then be like, oh, well, this data seems to suggest that AI generated content is better, or AI assisted content when it comes to the keywords, the topics, is better, right? And that would be on the surface level, if you were just to look at the data, that would be the conclusion that you would get. But I dove more into it, of course, and then what I found out is not necessarily that the generated content was better, but what we found was, because the AI generated process was much faster and more efficient, there were certain parts of the process that were sped up that allowed our specialists to work on other parts of the process that drove performance better. In terms of, for example, doing extra keyword research, finding more secondary keywords, finding better keywords because the targeting was better, because we found better developed personas using AI, right? A lot of these factors helped our specialists, whether it was a content marketer or the writer, to do the grunt work really easily and invest more time in providing value, driving engagement, making giving more accurate statistics or giving more statistics, and basically creating more value for the reader. And really, at the end of the day, if you look at all of the updates that Google has come up with recently, it's all about driving value. Whether it was the spam update or the link spam update, it's all about how is your content creating value for users.
And I think to add to what you were saying, James, about it, it's not just about the ranking itself. Well, that's the end goal. That's the result, the ranking. But really, AI, it allowed your team members, or really anybody in your team, including you, to be more creative or at least more strategic in the content that you guys are generating.
Yeah,
right? So
because we had more time to do it.
Right.
So that's really the secret of AI. It's not going to give you better content, but it will help you to create better content by giving you a jump start, making it scalable, making it faster, easier, so that your resources could be used elsewhere. And that's really how my team has been leveraging AI for the past year, almost 2 years now.
Yeah, I think almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Which we talked about it.
We have come a long way. We have come a long way.
But also, of course, we want to remind you guys, of course, there's a caveat in here about the results that we got, right? So those takeaways and best practices we shared with you guys, and everything that we presented, they're based on Google's current algorithm and AI technology, right? So both of those can change, right? Like I don't know, tomorrow.
It's so new. It's so there's so many evolutions happening all at once. So the data that we've produced here, the data that we've shown you, so far that's what it seems to suggest. Whether it will hold true next year or even the next month or the next week, we don't know.
Right.
But the future can be uncertain, but there are some things that I think we can all look forward to, and some things that we can all do to prepare for it.
Right. And we'll dive into that really quickly right now. I wanted to talk about, so again, an update can happen tomorrow, in a couple of hours, we don't know, but at least we can be ready on what to expect. First one here is improved search relevance, right? Search engines will be able to understand more complex search queries moving forward. Because right now, let's all face it, a lot of the keyword phrases or keywords that you type in Google sounds funny, right?
They're not natural.
Yeah, they're not conversational sentences or whatever, something like that. Meaning, you don't use it to talk to somebody, right? But as AI and Google algorithms and all other search engine algorithms improve, a lot of this will start to look for more conversational search prompts, right? So we can prepare for that. Of course, natural language processing or NLP. We dived into that. A lot of the queries are more natural as AI evolves in the algorithm or with the algorithm. Empowered visual searching, better search results using images and videos for searching. I mean, right now Google can already do the image searches, but again, not as accurate as text searches. Moving forward, we'll see more improvements from that. Updated snippets, the rich snippets that will able to answer more complex inquiries, because right now somebody searches, you'll see the infographics or the snippets. It provides like basic information about a company. Moving forward, I'm sure it can provide like a lot more information, and we'll show you guys actually an example later with Bing on how Bing's handling that.
Right.
A bit later. And yeah, again, of course, the evolving algorithm will always be there. There will be most likely more emerging AI ranking factors moving forward. Right now, it's always going to be about content and how users communicate the content, how they want to understand or what the need is, right? So we'll find out as AI evolves, there'll probably be more of that, right? And of course, James, if you want to talk about how they can prepare as well.
Right. So given all of those things that we're probably going to start seeing in the future, what can we do about it? First of all, when we talk about the future is here. I don't know how many of you have already used Bing with the ChatGPT interface. Do we have like a sample here we can show them?
We can.
So the interesting thing about it is that it's gone through some iterations already. right? So at first, so what you're going to see here is like, for example, if there's going to be a search, then the first iteration of that was the chat came out as a sidebar. It would be on the right side of the screen in the SERPs. Now what they've come up with is that it's a separate section. You would actually have to click chat, and then it comes out here, right? So there are different ways that they're experimenting. Obviously, Google hasn't come out with their own yet, but Bard will be definitely a part of that. But now what you're going to be seeing is that you can start looking for information using chat in Bing. And what the interesting thing here is, okay, so what happens to the SERPs? Well, if you see these highlighted numbers here, these statistics, for example. So what was the prompt here? What was the question?
It was just about SEO reseller.
Okay, searching about SEO reseller. So what is SEO reseller? And it will give you that, right? So if you were to search SEO reseller in the SERPs, you would obviously get just, you know, the organic results, and then the structured data and some of the pages that we have on there. But it's going to be very different if you're doing it through chat, because it tends to give you more information.
And more conversational.
And in a more conversational way. And if you see here, for example, if you click that reputation management there, see, all of that leads to a page.
Right.
So it's a different way of presenting pages and search engine results. And it will also give you, you know, like over here and learn more, depending on what you used. It can generate other prompts, other questions, so you can do further research. So it's really just kind of talking to an expert.
Right. And if you guys will notice as well on screen, so SEOreseller.com, so the AI is assuming I'm looking for the company. And then on the, at least on the learn more section here, there's an option that says, can I see examples of their work? Because again, it's assuming, oh, okay, if somebody's looking for SEOreseller.com, probably looking
Are they any
for,
good?
right.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Of
Okay.
course. If you want to see sample work, you can talk to us.
Right. So in this kind of environment, so imagine what this is going to look like when Google finally rolls it out, right? Or what's the next iteration for Bing, what it's going to look like. So what are some of the things that you can do knowing that this is around the corner? Is it going to happen next month, next week? We don't know, but it's definitely happening. So some things that you would need to do, the guarantees, the things that you should always be doing anyway. Number one, keep your structured data updated, right? For your website, make sure that your website has structured data so that it's very easy for Google or Bing to understand what parts of your site are relevant to which searches. If someone is looking, for example, for your hours, for your opening hours, if someone is looking for services, that structured data markup has to be present on your website. Okay, it makes a big difference because it makes it easier for Google to find those answers, or Bing to find those answers and serve it in the chat. Okay. Content quality and versus quantity, quality will still win, right? I understand it. The temptation is so huge for you to just, I have AI, I can just produce
I can know
tons
scale
of content. Yeah, I can scale up. I can produce whatever content. But again, at the end of the day, if you look at the patterns of the updates that Google has been releasing, it's all about the quality of the content, whether it serves the search intent, whether it provides value for the user. So quality over quantity. So again, using the example of the stuff that we've been doing for the past almost 2 years now, use the fact that AI lets you scale and lets you work faster to give you more time to increase the quality of your output. And that's what's going to drive results for you. Okay. Other things, optimize for natural language search terms, no longer things like, I don't know, estate attorney, Colorado, right? So instead, you would be searching for, can you recommend estate attorneys in Colorado? And then you can even add more. A lot of the searches are going to add more to that query, like who I can talk to about blah blah blah, right? Um, so what does that mean? Try to look for search terms that are more long tail and they're more conversational and optimize for them. So, which is not to say pivot everything to doing just that.
Right.
So do your usual stuff, do your usual, going for the money terms, going for the service keywords. Um, but also start optimizing for questions people also ask. Start looking at some of the pain points and how people would ask about those pain points to a chat assistant, right? And that's what you can, that's what will help you to optimize for that. Okay. And if you do that, it improves user experience, but it's not just about content, guys. When we talk about user experience here, we're talking about your entire website. Is it set up to provide a good user experience? Is it easy to navigate? Is it easy to find the information that you need? These are the things that Google is looking for. Whether or not you're using AI, Google will put a lot of emphasis on that. And if you can provide a positive user experience, a positive search experience, then you will tend to rank higher, right? Definitely something that you should be doing. And of course, with all of these new things coming out with AI, don't be afraid to experiment, to adapt, and to use new tools, because you need to be open to this, right? But hopefully some of the things that we've given you will give you a bit of a start to understand how you can use it. Or if you're already using it, like Andrew mentioned earlier, this might give you a different perspective how else it can be used. And just have fun with it and see how it can work for you and your organization's needs.
Actually, that's really what excites me about AI is
It's
there's a
great.
lot of avenues you can try.
What a time to be alive.
Yep. But yeah, actually, that's it for today, guys. But again, I just want to remind you guys, or we want to remind you at least from SEO Reseller, because we know again, Rame's team and my team, we're all using AI on here, but it's not the one missing thing that our team was missing, or at least for marketing to get better, or to have a difference in ranking. But it's a tool that we're using to augment the marketing strategy, right? So it's AI is a smart on-the-go assistant that you will always, that again you will always need, but will always need your guidance, right? So don't think about it's going to replace the whole team or anything.
Right. Yeah.
It
But
won't.
that's a question that I was getting a lot, especially when we began our pivot, like early,
right.
almost 2 years ago, where I would have writers saying, well, Rames, I don't want to use this because, I think this will replace me. And I said, you don't have to worry about AI content unless you're a bad writer.
Right.
Because AI can definitely come out with low to medium quality content. It's never going to produce anything amazing, right? So my question to that writer was, are you a bad writer? No. Then you have nothing to worry about.
Actually, yeah. AI will make, like, if they're a good writer, make them better.
It makes them better. It makes their work easier. Right. And that's what it's supposed to do. And that's really the approach that you should be taking to AI. It's not meant to replace anyone. It's meant to empower people to work faster, to work better, or to just make the job easier.
And yeah, we're talking about how fast AI is evolving, or the advancement is, and we came across information about how much ChatGPT spending every day to keep their service up.
$700,000 a day.
Right.
To get their service working, to operate their servers every single day.
Right. So there's a lot of resources put in developing, again, AI, not to make it the super intelligent AI we talked about earlier, but really just to make our lives easier. That's
just to keep up with demand, because again, everyone's using it. So like you could imagine the server load they're handling, all the processing it's doing on the fly. So that explains the $700,000 a day.
Yep. All right.